How's it, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in the previous short, I said, I showed you guys we were prepping the car for painting. So I just wanted to show you the kit that I bought. So this is from Paint Man. They sort of provide an entire kit that you need to paint the car. First time ever using it and ordering paint from these guys. It's enamel based paint, so it should be really good and hard wearing, but yeah, they give you the sort of scrubbing pads, the extra nozzles, the primer, the paints, mixed to the color code that you choose. You got the prep clean in there, the tack cloth, sanding paper, and like a mask, gloves, and the spray gun nozzle that fits onto the cans itself, so you get an even spray when you're doing it. So yeah, great kit. Obviously I've never used it before, so we'll see what the paint quality is like once it's on the car. But yeah, just off to the car again. As you can see, so the first thing I did was I sanded the entire car back. Just made sure it was smooth as I can, get all the sort of excess paint off, all the blemishes off as well. That allows me to then see where there are any dings or dents in the paint itself. So you can see like that, for example. So filled it and then sand it till it's smooth. Now I sanded this by hand. You can use a electric sand if you want to, but I just found that I prefer to sand it by hand, just so I can feel the blemishes as it is, so I can make sure that it is smooth as possible when sort of doing it. The next step then was to sort of wash it down. So I gave it a little rinse over, just so everything was clean, all the excess dust was off, and then I started to tape off the actual all the important bits that you don't want paint to go onto. So things like the light covers here, for example, the windscreen, the wiper motors, the wiper blades. That one was stubborn, it wouldn't come off, so I didn't take that one off, so I just masking taped it off. Same thing with the windows on the side, so you want to just mask off the windows, the handles, the locks. Same thing at the back window, the badges, anything else that you don't want paint to touch in case of overspray. And then yeah, then you're going to use the prep clean here. So I used prep clean with one of the tack cloths here and just sort of gave the car an entire wipe down. So as you can see, it's still a little bit sticky and tacky on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over it one more time with the tack cloth now, just to get anything excess off, just make sure it's clean as possible. And then we'll start with the primer. So we'll get the white primer on there on the body first, and then we'll go on with the color as well. So I'll get that all recorded for you guys. So here I'm using the rubbing pad to just roughen up the surface of the car, but also take off any excess dirt just to help the paint bind. Okay, so when applying the primer, what you want to do is you want to shake the can really well. As you can see here, there's no sound making. You got to keep shaking it until that ball is free up and it's completely moving, it's totally free. So you need to be able to hear that sound. So keep shaking it until it's absolutely free, there's no sticking, nothing else. Then it's properly mixed in the can, and then you can start applying it in an even manner. Just apply. Keep yourself about 3 to 4 inches away from the body. Depending on how it sprays, sometimes a little bit further away. You don't want splatter, because on the primer you will have to sand it out if it does splatter. So just try and give yourself a good distance away from the body, and then just even strokes and overlapping as you paint on there. Be sure not to linger on a certain spot with the can while you're pressing the nozzle. You don't want it to get any drips or anything like that on the car. If you do get drips or you do overspray in a particular area, you may need to kind of sand the car down again before the next coat, just to ensure it's smooth. Otherwise you will see that when you apply the top coat. So yeah, just be very careful when you're spraying. Move very evenly. Don't try to just hold in one spot for too long, and yeah, just be very careful when applying it. Okay, so that's the first layer of primer done. So overall it's been pretty good. The brand and so on has been really good. The nozzle hasn't really clogged, it wasn't spluttering, it got good coverage, to be honest. You can see it's a little bit streaky. That's normal for the first coat, so when we give it a second coat again, it should cover it quite good then, and it should be ready for painting thereafter. Yeah, the only thing I've discovered now is once I've put the primer on, it's actually shown a couple more areas where there are still blemishes and slight cracks and so on that weren't visible before, which is a little bit annoying. But obviously if I try to fill it now, I'll have to re-sand it again, re-clean it, prime it again, so I don't know if it's going to be worth doing that. So I'm going to give it a second coat of primer and see. The primer should fill sort of minor blemishes in it. So hopefully it smooths it out again. I might have to just give it a light wet sand after the second coat of primer, perhaps a third if I've got enough, and then yeah, just see if I can get them out. But yeah, a little bit annoying because I wanted it to be super smooth, but unfortunately not a professional, no access to professional tools. Gonna be the best I can do. So as you can see with coat number 2, it's looking a lot better now. You can't really see much of the underlying color on it. It's really even across the car itself. So yeah, again, with your project, just use your own sort of intuition on this. If you feel it needs another coat, then by all means go ahead and do it. You're building up layers here as you're painting a car, so essentially if you just feel it needs another layer, go over it again. And again, if you do find you've got any rough patches into that, you can sand it out again. So just use fine sandpaper and sand it out again, give it another coat, and you'll be good to go. It's really up to you how you want to do it and how what kind of finish you want to achieve. So I felt the bonnet was still a little bit streaky, so I decided to give it a third coat on that, just because when you look at a car first, you look at the bonnet, it's kind of the first thing that you see, so I just wanted it to be as good as I can get it. So using a really bright light, what I'm doing is I'm walking around the car and looking for any patches or imperfections in the paint. That way I can sort of touch it up now before we move on to actually putting the paint down. Because once the paint's down again, you're not going to be able to come to this. So yeah, just be thorough with this, take your time, and just check that you're happy with it before you move on. So yeah, overall I was happy with the outcome of the primer. So using the buffing pad again, what I'm going to go do now is just rub down the surface. It'll take off any excess dirt, but also just roughen it up a little bit before we put the main paint down. Again with the tack cloth, wipe the surface down after you've used the buffing pad, because you just want to get off any excess dust you can off the car, just to make sure it's as clean as possible. So again, same principle when applying the color. Keep your hand at a steady distance away from the car. Clean sweeps across the car itself. You can do a fanning motion, so I do it in certain areas of this car, just because of the color of the paint. Sometimes the fanning motion gives me a better coverage across it, just so I can apply it better. But again, be very careful when doing this. You don't want to hold or linger in a spot for too long. You will end up getting drips and it will just be very thick in a certain area. So just be very careful when doing that. If you do accidentally, spray too much in an area, wait for it to dry till it's to the touch. It's sort of not taking on your fingerprint or anything like that. And then with a very fine sandpaper, just sand it out very smoothly, very gently. I'd recommend doing a wet sand. Just so then you get it super smooth, and then with the enamel paint, when you put another layer on there, it should then fill out the very, very fine sandpaper lines or any sort of grooves that it makes. But yeah, just be very careful when applying it. Take your time. Do not rush this job.
for watching, guys, and if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned to see the final version of this car once it's all complete and put back together.